And welcome to the first edition of Algebra 2 Notes with Miss Faust. If you have not already done so, please take a minute and get your composition notebook set up like this with a column for questions and a column for notes. Our essential question for today is how do I graph a linear equation and how do I write an equation from a graph? Usually we'll have a lesson number and things like that, but this is review from Algebra 1, just things that we'll need for Algebra 2, so we don't have that today. So if you need to pause now and get that set up, do, and then I will see you back here in a moment. Okay, so the big idea today is graphing linear equations. Again, hopefully this is review from Algebra 1. So the main form of a linear equation is y equals mx plus b. Remember, x is our independent variable, goes on the x-axis. Y is our dependent variable, so the value of y depends on x. M stands for the slope in the equation. B stands for the y-intercept, and we'll talk more about both of those. There is a formula for slope, so if you have 2 points, the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we also often call slope the rise over the run. So if your slope isn't in a fraction form, you can always put it in fraction form. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. It also always gives us the point 0, b, where the x-coordinate of the point is 0 and the y-coordinate is b. So at this point, let's go ahead and look at an example and look at how we can graph a linear equation. So if we start with y equals 2x minus 4, for example, in this case, our slope is 2 over 1. Our y-intercept is negative 4, excuse me. So in order to draw a graph of this, we're going to just need to start with an x and y axis. So let me build that in here. And feel free to pause at any time if you need to get this all written down as we go through. Okay, so I have drawn my grid. My y-intercept is negative 4, which just barely fits down there. So I'm going to start by plotting my y-intercept at 0, negative 4. So 0 and negative 4, remember this is our x-axis, this is our y-axis. So 0 on the x and down 1, 2, 3, 4 would be a point right there. Once I have that, I'm going to use the slope, and I'm going to go up 2, because it's a positive 2, and I'm going to go right 1. So up 2 over 1, so from that negative 4, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. I can just do that again and again until I get enough points and can draw in my line. So that takes us through our first example of graphing a line. Just going to pause for a moment and I'll be right back. Next, we're going to look at 2 more examples of linear equations and how we can graph those. So let me just write them down first. The first one's going to be y equals 3 over 2x minus 4. The second one, let me just get a different color so we can see these, will be y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. So I'll write those 2 equations. Let me just build a little grid here again. Oh, and you know what? I'm going to change this one. We already did minus 4, so I'm going to make this y equals 3 over 2x. I'm just going to leave off the y-intercept actually for that one. We're just going to do 3 over 2x. So if we look at this purple one, if we have no thing at the end we're adding or subtracting, what that means is that our y-intercept in this is actually 0. So this is a good example to do because we have nothing that we're adding or subtracting. So the y-intercept is 0, so my first point goes at 0, 0. Again, I'll just write in my x and y axis there. So my first point goes at 0, 0. My slope is 3 over 2. So from 0, 0, I'll go up 3 over 2, up 3 over 2, and I can go the other direction, down 3 and back 2. Notice I'm always moving up and to the right when I plot these. So that purple line will go right through there, and I'm good. Now for the pink one, negative 1/2 x plus 3. So in this one, our y-intercept is positive 3. So on my y-axis, I go up to 3, put a point. My slope this time is negative 1 over 2. So from here, now that I have a negative slope always means we go down instead of up. So I'm going to go down 1 and over 2, down 1 and over 2, down 1 and over 2, and then again I can reverse it if I need more points there, and boom. I'm good. Okay, so you can see a couple more examples of graphing linear equations. Next, we're going to go on and look at what happens if we have horizontal and vertical lines. So if you need to pause at this point, get any more notes about this. If you have any questions as we're going through, this question side is a great place to write those down, and then tomorrow in class we can talk about them together. Okay, so on to our next page of notes. And you'll be patient with me as I get the hang of all of this. First try, but we gotta start somewhere, right? So let me just get this set up again. Notes. Oops, questions, just kidding. I'll make lots of mistakes. Mistakes are good. Questions and notes. Okay, so now we're gonna look at horizontal and vertical lines. So the way that some people use to remember these is the acronym HOY and VUX. H stands for horizontal, so horizontal line goes that way. The O is because it has a 0 slope, and if we look at a horizontal line, you can see not going up or down at all, so the slope of that is 0. And it's Y because the equation is always y equals something. So whatever number your y is equal to, that's how you're going to get the equation of your horizontal line. If you want to see a quick example of that, let's just again, they make little stamps that do these. One of these days maybe I'll get one, but for today we're okay. So for example, if we wanted to graph y equals 1, we just come up to 1 on the y-axis, we make a horizontal line, and we're good. That's all there is to it. On to vertical lines, V stands for vertical. Vertical goes this way. U is because the slope is undefined. And if you think about that, if your line's going straight up and down, you're going up, but you're never going over. So you can't have a slope that goes up and over anywhere. The equation is always x equals something. So for example, we could have x equals 2 as a vertical line. And a vertical line at x equals 2 just means that I would go to 2 on my x-axis, and then I go straight up and down from there. So that line is x equals 2. Go back and label this one. This one was y equals 1. Just for a couple more examples, we could put a line right here. If you think about that, you think, okay, is that an x or a y? Well, it's a vertical line, so since it's a vertical line, it's going to be x equals something. I look at where it crosses the x-axis, and it's at -1. So that's at x equals -1. And one more example of a horizontal line. Say we had a line right here. You're like, I wonder what the equation is. Well, horizontal line, 0 slope, so I know it's y equals something. So I'll write in the y equals part, and then I go, oh, 1, 2, 3, -3. So the equation of that line is y equals -3. Now that we've got all the basics down, the one more thing that we want to do is we want to be able to look at a line and write the equation of the line. So you can do this with me. We're going to come down here. So here we're starting with a graph. And we're going to write equations. So I'm going to draw in a couple, and again, I'll go ahead and do this in real time so that you can do it with me if you'd like, and then we will write the equations as well. So if I start there, let me just see my first one. I'm going to have go right through here like so. So I'll have a pink line. We'll put a line here, a blue one, teal, blue, green, whatever you want to call that color. And how about one right through here, like so. Okay. So hopefully if you want to pause again and get a good copy of this graph, you can. This pink one, well, I don't want to say too much because I'll give it away, but you can get the basic picture down from looking at this. So again, let me just label my x and y axis. And in all these, I'm just going by ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4. -1, -2, -3, -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. As we get more complex, we'll get into different scales, but for now, we'll just leave it at that. So if we look at our pink line, we want to think about two things. We want to think about the y-intercept, and we want to think about the slope. So when we look at our pink line, for the y-intercept, we need to see where it crosses the y-axis. So I just look here. Here's my y-axis. It's crossing at +3. You can put the little plus next to it if you want. And then for my slope, I need to look at where from that +3, I find another point that goes right through the grid lines. That's a good one to use. And I look at how many I go up or down and over to get from that y-intercept to the next one. Remember, we always want to move to the right. So from there to there, I have to go down 1 and over 1. So I'm going down 1 and I'm going over 1. Because I'm going down 1, that means my slope is -1/1, or just -1. And then to write the equation of the line, I write y equals -1x plus 3. Just plugging in that slope and y-intercept that I already found into my equation. And we're good. And we can go on to the blue line then. And if we look at the blue line, we might notice if we try and find a y-intercept, there is none. So we can't find a y-intercept. So then we notice that it is a vertical line. And once we know it's a vertical line, oh look, luckily this is still just barely visible. So our slope is undefined, so I know my equation is going to be x equals something. So I look at this and I say, okay, gotta have x equals something. Well, -1, -2, oh, x equals -3. So that is the equation of my blue line. And finally for my purple line, I need to look at that one, not horizontal, not vertical, so I need a y-intercept and I need a slope. If I can find those two things, then I can fill them in and write the equation of the line. So my y-intercept in this case, oops, a little bit, come down a little bit, oh, we'll go this way, there we go. Close enough. So my y-intercept here, again, I look at my y-axis, I say, oh, there it is at -2. Put a -2 there. I look for my slope. So in this case, I say, okay, -2. Well, right there, it's not really on a grid line, so I'm not going to use that one, not going to use that one. Oh, there it is, right there. So to get from that point to that point, I go up 1 and over 1, 2, 3. So my rise is 1, my run is 3, or my slope is 1/3. So then to write the equation of my line, I just plug in that slope and that y-intercept. So y equals 1/3 x minus 2. Somehow you can see that. There we go. Y equals 1/3 x minus 2. And we're good. So hopefully now pause, go back, rewatch anything if you're unclear about how we get the equations of lines or how we graph lines, and bring any questions you have to class tomorrow. Thank you. Have a good day.